Hello, hello, hello! Welcome everyone to another week of covering When the Moon Hatched, chapter by chapter in my deep dive prep for book number 2, The Ballad of Falling Dragons, coming out in April. This week we'll be covering chapters 6 through 9. Even though I will only be talking about those chapters and the events specific to them, I very well will bring in things from the entirety of the book, as this is a deep dive. That being said, if you have not finished reading the entirety of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker, please do not continue with this video. I do not want to spoil anything for you. Another quick PSA is that this book has mature content. There are very descriptive gory scenes, dialogue, and sexual content, meaning that this video is not for all viewers. Right, now that we have all that covered, let's dive in. Chapter 6. We've reached our very first diary entry. In this journal entry, we meet young Eowyn Navon, Princess of the Shade, and she introduces us to the rest of her family. Her father, the King of the Shade, her mother, Queen of the Shade, and the bearer of the Aether Stone, and her brother, Hadian. Her mother and father's names are Eudora and Audric. This can be found in the glossary, as Eowyn simply calls them Mommy and Poppy. Seeing her mother wear the Aether Stone through young Eowyn's eyes doesn't make being the bearer of the Aether Stone look like all it's cracked up to be. In Chapter 7, Rave takes us on a walk through the ditch, and in my mind, all I can picture is the Beauty and the Beast scene during the song Belle. Bonjour, good day, how is your wife? I need 6 eggs, that's too expensive. Okay, I digress. Rave has to cover herself up as she heads further into town to be sure to blend in with the rest of the population. Nobody wants to be looking like they're doing a walk of shame, whether or not it is a walk of shame. She weaves her way through town to the ditch's version of a department store. Honestly, anyone from the Midwest, I'm envisioning like a Fleet Farm, or out west there is something called a Murdoch's. This is basically a shop that's got everything from runic ingredients to weaponry to tailored clothing orders, whereas Fleet Farm has food, it has weapons, and it has clothing, as well as stuff for building and car stuff, and I mean basically everything. As we enter the shop, we meet its owner, Ruse, a no bullshit, hardworking woman. So she's just Rave's friend type. Along with Ruse, we also meet her friend, Uno. Uno is a miskin that we will talk about later. Thankfully, Ruse has everything that she can read off of the list, but she's not able to discern what is under Tarek's blood splat any better than Rave was. She quickly grabs everything that Essie's list calls for and charges it to Rave's account. This is also when we find out that Rave funded last night's mission for the Ath rather than them funding it for her. Rave restocks on sawtooth blades and another top for her dress before she is called upstairs to visit with her boss, Serene. Chapter 8. We begin this chapter with one of Rave's least favorite people in this world. We learn her dislike is for good reason. This Queen of Purple wishes she could be queen of much more, and not only does she remind Rave of her station and the power that she has over her, but she quite literally reminds Rave of the power she has over her. Serene wears a vial around her neck that, for me, is reminiscent of Ursula's conch shell. Though Rave still has her voice, this does contain a piece of her blood. The power struggle between these two is a continuous volley throughout the chapter. Serene has called Rave to her office, though, to ask if she has received her parchment lark, which was a word of warning. The one and only Rex Zaros is in town, and he's on the prowl for any hint of the rebellion that is the Fir-Duath. As she knows exactly where Rave's mind goes when hearing the latest development, Serene forbids her from going after him, and actually commands that she lay low until he has left. The blood-seeking bounty hunter is looking to take down the biggest connection to the Ath that he can find, and Rave is too valuable to lose. Unfortunately, he isn't known for being half-assed at his work, and someone will have to take the fall for the rest of the Ath, so that they can continue to do their work in the shadows. Rave puts up quite the argument before she's put in her place by Serene using the blood-laced vial around her neck. We finally learn how Rave got to where she is after having escaped the Scavenger King. We learn that Serene is most likely physically active with the Elding Bird, and before Rave leaves Serene's office, we do get to visit the icy lake within her to drown yet another Stone of Sadness. Chapter 9 is another diary entry, and it is Eowyn telling us of her brother's upcoming journey to steal his own moon plume egg and how she doesn't believe that he will end up surviving the trip. Okay, that was the wrap-up of what happened in chapters 6 through 9. We are going to dive into the deep dive part, starting with chapter 6. We begin our set of chapters with the very first journal entry. All right, now it is important to know that these journal entries start in the phase 5,030,000 after Stone. That's exactly 135 phases, or years, before the start of the book or our main storyline. We meet our young princess of the Shade and the rest of her family, her mommy, her papi, and her brother Hadian. We learn that Hadian, in particular, cannot hear any of the creator's songs. Eowyn also cannot hear any of the songs yet, though it is hinted at that she will soon. It's here that I would like to question how the Aether Stone is passed down, how it's chosen by the creators who they will sing to next. Originally, it sat on the brow of a gentleman, but the most recent bearers have all been female. So does gender matter? I don't actually know, but I hope that we get the answers in book 2. This young girl, who is only 9 phases old, recognizes and weighs the difference between the weight of the crowns on both of her parents' heads. Her mommy wears the diadem that holds the Aether Stone, and Eowyn notes that her mommy always looks very, very tired. Duh. She's having the life literally sucked out of her. I would be tired too. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm tired on the daily for having 2 under 2. I can't imagine also having something stuck to my forehead that is draining the life force out of me. I would be so tired all of the time. It is very important to note this quote here. The stone on mommy is so black, it looks like somebody could fall straight through it. I would like to note that this blackness is also that of a void, as Kalis is quite literally the void, the emptiness that everyone else is filling. I also find it important that it says that someone could fall straight through it. I'm sorry, what? Is that how Kalis is going to get free? Is he going to quite literally fall out of the stone? This is something interesting to think about. On the other hand, her pa's crown is heavy in a much different way. He has an entire kingdom to look after, let alone his own family and his wife, who in particular is burning at a candle at both ends, and simply because of her heritage and needs assistance herself. This little girl has gone through the ringer. It's not easy to see for a child to see their parents breaking down in the way that Eowyn has seen her mom do on multiple occasions. They're still little, and they're using their parents' nervous systems to help regulate their own big feelings and their own nervous systems. Like any child bearing witness to their parents, who may still seem invincible at this stage, Eowyn sweetly tries to help her mom by doing what I imagine her mom does for her when she cries, and that's sing her a song. As a mom, reading this and knowing that only made her mom cry harder, I totally get it. It wasn't a sad cry at that point. It was most likely a happy, sappy cry. I have two daughters. My oldest has just gotten to the stage of saying, "Oh, hey, mama, oh, hey," and like rubbing my back and checking in on me if I'm having a bad day and I'm maybe quieter than normal. And it's so adorable that it does make me really want to cry, especially on the days when I'm in my menstrual cycle. It makes it so hard. She is so sweet, and she's trying to help in the only way that she knows. I'm glad, though, that Eowyn has such a healthy demonstration of how to deal with these big emotions. It's sitting with them, sitting through them, and letting them wash through her rather than shoving them back down, saying, "I'm fine, it's okay, we're gonna keep going." And then she sees another healthy way as using another loved one, her husband. Eowyn's papa helps her mom manage all of these big emotions and lets her just kind of have them. Rave, please take note. And we've got 100 points to Gryffindor for her husband's companionship in these moments. He's not trying to quiet her. He's not trying to tell her it's going to be okay. He just picks her up, holds her, and brings her inside where he knows that she's going to be the most comfortable to deal with these emotions that may not even be her own. All right. Now, there's another line here that I want to dissect before moving into chapter 7. The quote says, "She wiped my cheeks and told me she'd be okay, that she lost something important, but that my cuddles made her feel much better." I know that rain is likely what is making her cry. It is stated that Eowyn found her crying outside in the dark while the snow fell around her and stuck to her hair. Therefore, it's like when it's raining. Rain, snow, same, just different temperatures. Later in the book, we do get to see Rave hear rain for the first time, and she says, quote, "She'll never be whole again, not in the way that she was." This is in reference to rain. I, however, do want to ask what it is that Rain is missing that makes her so mournful in her song. Is it the unrequited love that she holds for Boulder, or could it be that she's constantly falling apart, like when she's raining or when it's snowing. It's the two instances that we see where the creators, aka rain, is overpowering the one who can hear them the most. And by falling apart, I mean they were solid in like a cloud, and then it got too heavy and it started to rain and started to snow. Therefore, they fell apart into all of these little particles as they fall down before they can rejoin in a river or a lake or a pile of snow on the ground. I don't actually know. I am very curious. I would love to know. And I hope that we do learn more in book 2. Chapter 7, we start the chapter with the rising aurora ribbons, of which there are 10. Numbers are important. I don't know what this means, but I'm keeping this in the back of my mind. Rafe starts her day off with a bang, descending 33 levels of stairs. Now, my house is above our garage, and that's only 23 stairs, but I still dread making that walk each morning. So the fact that she just waltzed up there on her own because she wanted to be closer to the sky, that tells you something. It might tell you a little something about who is inside of her. All right, the first thing that Rafe introduces us to in this world is this world's version of a cow. It's called a colk, and they are about as versatile as cows are for us. They pull carts for merchants, they produce milk for everybody, and we do learn later on down the road that they are also used for meat. The second thing that Raven introduces us to is actually the concept of a ghost lark. A ghost lark is one that is a lark that is sent off to someone who has passed before they receive the lark. These larks spend the rest of their existence dancing with the fluffy sow moths, as Ray so graciously put it. But this bit of information is actually important to us, as we will meet a lark in a couple of chapters that is intended to be a ghost lark but ends up actually being delivered without the sender knowing. Of course, I am talking about Nee. Nee was sent to Rave in a time of need, a shot in the dark and a whisper on the wind. Kizari sent her mother a lark not 5 phases ago, or years ago, that only had 3 words on it. I need you. We will come to see Rave finally scribble an answer and send it back into the world after years of holding on to it and keeping it essentially as a pet, not believing that it was meant for her in the first place. At the very end of this book, we do see Nee actually make her way back to Kizari as she is locked in the Scavenger King's cell. When Kizari opens it, there's an answer under her writing that says, "No, you don't." This is the final nail in the coffin if you didn't already make the connections between Elowen and Rave on a first read, and let me tell you, it was heartbreaking. Poor Kizari is just having a bad day and is sent a lark, had it like 5 years ago. Poor Kizari was having a bad day, sent a lark off into the world, believing that nothing would come of it, just that she needed to get it out there, only to have it returned to her while she is locked in a cell, fearing for her life and fighting for her life. I mean, talk about kicking a horse while it's down. Not only does Nee just tell her that her mom is actually alive, but also that she, doesn't know that Kizari exists or doesn't care that Kizari exists and that she's there. Oh, God. It's brutal. Speaking of parchment larks and keeping them as pets, let's all give a warm welcome to Ruse and her herd of larks. Ruse is the shopkeeper at the Curly Quill and seems like someone that I would be friends with. When Rave walks in, she is running inventory and loves doing it just about as much as everyone else who needs to count every single object in a store by themselves does. Thankfully, she is so organized that when Rave hands her the list from Essie, she knows exactly what she does and doesn't have to fulfill the list. Luckily for Rave, she has everything, including the sow moths, though she does mention that she cannot decipher what is underneath the blood splatter from Tark. We also get to meet her other pet, Uno. Uno is a miskin, which, according to the glossary, is a knee-height creature with white hair and complexion, buttony features, and sharp teeth. They have willowy bodies that fold up like a marsupial and long tufted tails. They can see into the future, though these visions are sporadic and subject to change. These creatures are verbal. They are highly coveted and very rare, and this one in particular, though they may all be this way, I just have no way of knowing it, is rather shy. While totaling up all that Rave will owe for the items on the list and the dagger and the new dress part, we do learn that not only did Rave pay for tonight's mission, but she also regularly takes money out of her account to head down to the Undercity and scatter it for those in need. This is a wonderful look at the softer side of Rave, the side that cares about others' well-beings, and though she might not enjoy her job for anything more than the fact that it allows her to do something like this, to clean up the world that she loves so much, and grants her enough money to be able to do these bloodstone scatters. I would like to point out that while Rave is ordering replacement dress top, Ruse does mention that Rave has special requirements. Special being in italics. These requirements will make the material a bit delayed on the shipment as it is coming from the merchant in the burn and he needs to color match. So the color matching is not the special requirements. My thoughts on what the special requirements could be. The fact that there will be absolutely zero metal on it. None whatsoever. It's all fabric. We know that it's all fabric. So maybe it's somehow fireproof to some degree. We never truly find out, but the burn is the hottest place, and to my understanding, there may be more folk with affinities to Ignos in that kingdom as well. So I'm going to couple the knowledge together with the fact that there may be more people with the affinities to Ignos there, and her particular past experiences with Ignos, and say that it could possibly be something that is somehow fireproof to a degree, but I don't actually know. The last thing I want to point out that Rave ordered was sawtooth blades. We find out later on that these are because that she knows that Khan is too big for her to lug off anywhere if she does in fact have to kill him. And so she orders a couple of sawtooth blades so that she is able to cut him up into bits to dispose of him easier. I mean, we like a girl that's prepared. I can't deny I like a prepared girl. So before Rave is able to leave, she is summoned by Big Boss Lady Sareem, and she is told it is not an optional meeting. I will hand it to the Rave, though, for as crappy as she is at dealing with big sad emotions, when she got upset here, she took time to herself to quite literally count to 10, take a few breaths before she went into the meeting. Round of applause! Little things, it's the little things. We hope that this emotional maturity continues to grow. Chapter 8. Whenever I picture Sareem in my head, all I can envision is the purple version of Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Just a real quick note here about Sareem. It is mentioned in her description that she does have silver eyes. There aren't any other folk or creatures that are described as having silver eyes, but I do think that I don't think it's a popular eye color amongst the folk of the world. I don't know what it means, but she's also often described as a serpent or a spider. So take that with a grain of salt. The next important piece of description that we get is about the vial around Sareem's neck and the fact that she has a white runi bead in her ear. The vial is described as being silver with etched luminous runes. Now this gave me pause because we've seen runes before, but this is the first set that have been glowing. I don't know what it means. I originally thought that maybe it's because they were forged with blood, that the blood that was on the inside of the vial, so it's a blood lacer. But the runes that are all over Rave's body were also done with her blood to heal them up. So buy another blood lacer or a flesh thread, and those ones don't glow. I mean, they do into a certain light, but this glows all of the time. There's no firelight here, so I'm not entirely certain. And I don't know if we ever will find out, but we're going to keep on keeping on. Not going to lie, if those breaths to calm Rave down before she went into this little meeting truly worked, I would love, but also kind of hate to see the sass that she has and just let Sareem have it. She walks in, and one of the first things she does is to actually poke the proverbial bear. It is pointed out just how orderly everything in Sareem's office is, and Rave just walks in and completely destroys the serenity of it with her presence. She sits in that chair sideways, her feet hanging up and over the side. She puts on an air of complete nonchalance, and after being minorly insulted just once by Sareem, she actually goes so far as to prop her dirty boots onto the desk and bump all of the orderly quills and things that are there, and she throws verbal grenades into the room. Once Sareem and Rave are done with their little power struggle, we learn that the larks that Sareem has been sending aren't always being delivered to Rave herself. As rereaders, we know that this is due to the ruins that Essie has made on their windows using Rave's blood, which tells us that the larks are attracted to the blood of individuals they are supposed to be delivered to. And here we get the first mention of the only individual we have heard of so far that is worse than Tarek Relican, and that is Rexaros. Rek is this world's top bounty hunter and has been hired by the crown to take down the rebellion. This man is as low as they come, but in a completely different way from Tark. I mean, he thrives on doing the king's, or whoever's willing to pay top dollars, dirty work. He does work for whomever will pay him most, but it seems that as though he has some sort of agreement with the Vagor twins. He's ruthless and has no qualms with trimming a bit of prime rib while cutting off the fat, if you catch my drift. Though he may take some innocent lives down in the process, he's never missed a mark. He's also not exactly known for his animal handling skills. He is the only Fae that we meet that rides a dragon and has to use spurs. Of course, Rave is anxious to put a knife through his heart, and I am too. I'm anxious for her to do it, not myself, but you know. Sadly, she doesn't get the chance. Yet. Serene bids her to stay at home and lay low until she handles the Rek situation, meaning she's going to sacrifice someone else in Rave's place. That's just how valuable she is to the Ath. This conversation is also where we learn that the Ath doesn't really care about Nulls, and they need Rave. So much so that they risked our entire cause to keep you happy, hindered political progress. I'm sorry. What is the political progress that was hindered? If, now it is a big if, because this is just a theory, even though it's one I fully believe in, the Elding Bird is the Scavenger King, then I would imagine that the political progress that has been hindered has something to do with him making allies. Or it could be him kidnapping Kazari. He was planning on doing it sooner. Had to wait to save all these Nulls, to keep Rave satisfied. And then he could kidnap her. That would make sense. The timelines would out for that. That's very possible. Maybe that is the political progress. Stealing Kazari and holding her hostage. Not only do they not care about the Nulls, but they also won't go after Kadak. If you're going to... Okay, so you're all going to start calling me crazy. But if they didn't go after Kadak, maybe it's because the Elding is the Scavenger King and he wants to go after Khan first. Okay, I'll stop with that. There are a couple of interesting world-building things that we learn about during this conversation as well. One being the fact that the Tri-Council actually has a say in who rules the kingdoms, and that they would never allow a single bead royal, especially a queen, to sit the throne. Who is the Tri-Council, you ask? Well, that's a very good question. The glossary refers to them as a council of ancient tri-beaded elementals and very knowledgeable Runies. They hold a certain amount of sway over the kingdoms because of their great power and sometimes intervene in political matters. They reside in Botheim, neutral territory that does not fall under the rule of any king or queen. We don't know who they are, though, nor how they came to be. I do believe that they can be bought, and I believe this because Ostrin, who is Khan's dad, bought them at one point. He managed to get his entire family on a throne in every single kingdom. He had Tirok on his throne down in the Shade. He had Kadak on the throne in the Fade, and then he had himself on the throne in the Burn. One family, all three thrones. I have a hard time believing that the Tri-Council would let that happen if they weren't being bought off. The second thing that we learn is that Kadak and Queen Dothea, which is his wife, have a son that is a tri-bead, whose name is Turun. However, he has been, quote, missing for many phases, and, quote, some say he went mad, and rather than make the problem public, the king was all too happy to hide him away. The question that this brings up for me are, 1. Where did they hide him away? 2. How old was he when he was taken from the public eye? 3. Why was he hidden away in the first place? Why was he called crazy? Did he start to hear the creators? Can he hear more than one creator? Can he hear all 3? Possibly even all 4. 4. Was it because that he can't handle those creator songs? What made him go mad? None of these are answered in this book, but it is something that I'm going to keep in the back of my mind as I prep for book 2, because I do feel like he will come back into the picture at some point. We do also learn through this interaction that the blood that is in Sereem's vial, which Rave also affectionately calls her shekel, can be used for many things. We get one of these 2 things that we hear about, and the other we get to see within this interaction. It can be used to cause harm. We get to see this one. Sereem can run a nail over Rave's rune on the outside of the vial, and it'll send a, quote, scratching sensation over one of her ribs like a filleting blade. The other way it can be used is actually to heal. We don't get to witness this one firsthand, but we are led through a memory, and it's an important one when Sereem used it to heal Rave. It was actually the memory of how Sareem got Rave to drip her blood into the vial in the first place. So, a walk down memory lane. Stroll with me. The first time that Sareem saw/met Rave was when Rave was not actually herself. She was the other. She was in the Undercity, surrounded by death that she herself had dealt out. Though Rave doesn't remember any of it, she tucked it all away behind the veil of ice. This is one of the biggest hints as to who the other might be. We have plenty of cold references, but this creature that takes over her body and putting up a mental barrier that is made of ice to keep Rave out? Come on, it's a moon plume, and the only moon plume that is connected to Rave is Slatra. There aren't many creatures listed as living in the shade, so that points it to being a moon plume. Oh. What really seals the deal, though, is this quote. I remember being pitted with certainty that whatever I was doing was not okay, but that the part of me in control lived by a different set of rules, that in their eyes it was tame. Sareem later told me I'd look out at her through black, glittery eyes, face splattered in blood, canines bared, and that she knew I was broken beyond repair, in desperate need of an avenue to channel my rage. The part of her that was in control, living by a different set of rules, harsher rules. Dragon. The fact that Sareem told Rave that her eyes were black and glittery that day. Now, if you look in the glossary and the definition of a moon plume, it says their eyes are big, black, and glittery. Their faces rounded and necks long and bodies elegant. Black, glittery eyes. Moon plume, Slatra. They're the only animal as described as having black, glittery eyes. I'm sorry, Slatra is the other. This walk down memory lane also gives us the famous quote, broken things make the sharpest weapons. Though the full quote is, I think she saw me, surrounded by the mulched bodies of freshly slain folk who'd come to hunt me down, and decided broken things make the sharpest weapons, as long as you fetter them to yourself so they don't fly away. The people that were hunting Rave down had to be the Scavenger King's men. This was after she had escaped him, so the only thing that would be hunting her, as it was the only thing that she knew because she woke up in one of his cells, would be the Scavenger King. She wouldn't have made enemies yet from the Ath because she was not part of the Ath. She had not taken care of any people. Therefore, the only answer is that the people that she killed that were trying to get her back would be the Scavenger King's people. It is mentioned here that Sareem convinced her to give her blood by offering her revenge. And in the very next paragraph, Rave mentions that she didn't yet know about all the injustices in the Fade. This means that the picture of that sweet, sweet revenge that Sareem painted for Rave had to be revenge on the Scavenger King himself, right? I mean, at least that makes sense to me, though I don't know how Sareem would know about the Scavenger King and what he did to Rave, unless he is the Elding Bird and he sent Sareem there to go after Rave as kind of like a good cop, bad cop kind of thing. You know, the bad guys that she all killed were the bad cops, and Sareem is the good cop offering her something that she probably can't have at the very end of it. Okay, I'll leave it lie, but really I think that they are one and the same. Now, before we end this conversation with Sareem, we do get to see one more piece of Rave's past. She reminisces on all the times that she's been pieced back together and how it has never been for her own benefit. And then she goes to mention Fallon for only the second time all story. This is when we learn a bit more about Fallon and who she was to Rave. She was a cellmate, a friend, and a companion in a very dark and confusing time in Rave's life. Rave doesn't remember anything before waking up in the cell in the Scavenger King's lair, and Fallon was her cellmate. She taught her to speak, taught her to read, and taught her to write. She taught her the beauty of the world through her stories of the colorful clouds and the beautiful moons in the sky. She gave Rave hope in a place that stripped an individual of everything. Fallon gave Rave the key to survival. Of course, as with any time that Rave feels sadness, especially to this level, we get to visit her inner icy lake. And how I wish there were a therapist down there for you, Rave. Though she dropped yet another heavy rock into that inner lake, she does leave Sareem on what I take is a good note. She says, my life has never been on my own terms, and I refuse to accept this as living. To me, this is putting her foot down, deciding that her life needs a change and that she's going to make that happen. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the change will come. She's obviously trying to change the world for everyone else. And so no one else feels the things that she has felt. No one else has to go through the horrors that she has endured. But now it's time for her to take care of herself. Chapter 9, on to our next journal entry. In this entry, we learn about Elwyn's brother's upcoming trip to Netherin, and this journey is to steal a Moonplume egg and what it might entail. It's a very long and arduous climb to the coldest place that this world has to offer. Once he gets there, he must also climb up icy towers to the Moonplume nest and steal an egg, all without being seen by the mother Moonplumes. This is a tough task for anyone, especially someone like her brother, who can't hear any of the Creator's songs. She truly doesn't believe that he's coming home. And that's a wrap. That's chapters 6 through 9. I will get the next set of chapters out to you as soon as I possibly can, but thanks for coming along, guys. Bye.